Hi, today we're with Anusha and Srinath. They're dear friends and colleagues in the TA community. And last year they did P.E.T with me, which is Dr. Gordon's parent effectiveness training. And they're here to talk about that. And I'm really excited to have this conversation because we've had many overlaps in P.E.T and TA and lots of discussions. And that's been really exciting for me personally. So thank you both.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to begin with asking, like, what brought you to P.E.T and what changes maybe you noticed before you had done the program and then after?
Yeah.
I'll start.
Yeah.
Okay. So Sonal, I met Sonal in 2017, I think, in a coaching workshop. And that's when I first got to know you do something with respect to parenting training. So I think I had filed it at the back of my mind that at some point in my life I will need this kind of a thing. And then when we got pregnant, I think that was the first time when it became a reality for me that okay, there is a new role coming up for me, first child, right? So all the nerves around being a father for the first time. I remember even I think I got fever as soon as I heard that we were pregnant. So that was my state. So I thought, okay, yeah. So I was like, okay, so I know that I have some help even outside our family system that I can rely on. And then when our child came into the world, and I think about a year old, that's when a lot of challenges also came because of the new role, which I had no clue what to do. And I found my confidence really getting a battering at that point, right? That I'm not able to be the best dad possible for my child. And that propelled me to seek support in that sense, and that's when I reached out to you. Yeah,
It's fascinating to me because I see both of you. I mean, I knew you more,
yeah.
and then of course I've gotten to know Anusha really well as well now. But that surprises me because you're such a self-aware person and you do a lot of personal work, and I'm just like surprised to hear that.
Yeah. So but that was my process, right?
Right.
So even I thought, I've been in the TA transaction analysis journey since 2014. So there is a lot of self-awareness, there is a lot of personal work that I've also done. But the thing also is that earlier, at least, I used to have some coping mechanisms which were not really most healthy ones, and through this journey I have been able to shed those and actually connect realistically as a real person in all my relationships in life. But that also means that everything I now feel a lot more, right, than I earlier used to. I earlier would just block away a lot of stuff that I don't want to feel and all of that. But now it is all very real. So that's, And the healthy way to manage that or to work with that is to also seek support when I know I need help, right? And that is a developmental space for me, because earlier I would find it very difficult to ask for help and seek support. So something like this, I myself would have scoffed at if I were in an earlier space where what you're going for a training for parenting? Does that even make sense? That would have been my earlier life. But I'm so happy and glad that I was able to go through this journey and be in a place where I can look at this as an authentic support mechanism and actually seek your support and help and get to that space. And the key benefit that I got by being part of the P.E.T journey to get into that mode is essentially my confidence as a parent has grown by leaps and bounds, right? So that's been my biggest takeaway. There have been a lot of techniques and very detail oriented day-to-day communication stuff, but overall together what it has meant to me is that I'm much more confident, and I'm also much more forgiving of myself to be this good enough parent, right? So that is a big learning for me. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So for me, TA journey, self journey was, I would say was an eye opener, because for me, that helped me look at how I was being parented when I was a child, and also to understand that what so the basic message was, for me, was my parents did whatever they did for the keeping me and my um, having good intentions for me. Yeah, so that's what every parent have for their child.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is the underlying message. But how they communicate that to the child, yeah, hey, I love you, and this is the way I want to show my love, is very different. Yeah, and so I've always heard, hey, do this, I know what is good for you.
Mm.
Yeah, and for me, that's what I've always thought, okay, this is the way to parent. Yeah, and because that was what I was exposed to. And with the TA journey, I learned that messages, both verbal, non-verbal, direct, indirect, which my parents were giving, I didn't really interpret it that way. Yeah, so I interpreted it in different ways at different times. So for me, it was very clear when I became a mom that I had to change this. I need a better way to communicate to my child that I love him, and I'm doing all that I can to make it easy for you. Yeah, because you're a child and I want to make it easy. And that was the reason why I knew I needed something. So, as usual, you look out and then you see so many books there with yeah, with so many chapters. And so I did start with some, and then it was a little overwhelming.
Sure.
So I yeah. So um, and you always, this is so cliched, right? People tell, oh, parenting is a tough job without a manual. And then I said, oh, I met you during Stroke City, and when you talked about this, and hey, there is a manual. Why don't people know about it? Yeah. And when I got more details, I felt, hey, this is not some, you know, publicized self-help training. This is a tried, tested um, a model, and we have a trainer who's been training this for so long. And why not, it's such a golden opportunity. Yeah, and why do I need to miss it? Yeah, so then it was, the question was then just the logistics. Yeah, how do we manage? And
Yeah.
and also what was very key, which I also discussed with Srinath, was when do we start it? Hey, Aran is hardly a year old.
Yeah.
Or yeah, will he even know? Or should we start late so that, but then it's like, glad we took that, because the earlier we start, the better. And that we learned, yeah, in P.E.T. So that was the triggering point for me. And also to do it with my partner, my husband, and the father of the child, is it was, I couldn't have it any other way. And yeah, so that's the thing. And for me, the biggest takeaway for me was, uh, again, from my upbringing, is not to treat a child as a child. Yeah, so to look at a child as an individual who can think for himself, even though he's very tiny, and not just think, who can communicate clearly. Yeah, so that was my biggest learning and takeaway. Than Rather than telling, hey, I know what's good for you, you do the way I want you to. Yeah,
That's
so that
really
was my,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
So you speak about like they can think and they can communicate. So it's like that's pretty much TA, right? We can think, they can do, they can make changes.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I'd really like, you've said a lot about how it's been with Aran. I mean, like you've spoken about it in broad generalities. Would you share some examples of like places where this has been different for you from before?
Yeah, so definitely, right? So many examples are there. The thing is, I think what would also help anyone who is listening to this also is, you start with the challenges, right? So parenting being a very challenging job, we are getting a lot of challenges thrown every day. So I think one of the challenges we had at the time when we were doing P.E.T was brushing the teeth, right? So So Aran would just not want to brush. And for us, it was very important that he brushes regularly. And at the time of joining P.E.T, I remember it was a nightmare for all of us, right? So we would take the help of one of the grandparents or even just the two of us, and one of us would kind of literally pin him down and open his mouth, and then the other would put the brush in and brush, and he will be trying to scream throughout the process, right? So this was so very so we I at least personally I was dreading this moment every day, right? When it would come, because of course we want the best for the child, but this is not how I want to do it. But I didn't know any other way. We didn't know any other way at that point in time, and we had to get it done. Also, that was also very important for us.
Right.
I think the behavior window really kind of put this whole challenge in perspective, right? So whose problem is it really, right? So clearly it was not Arun's problem, right? So he brushes, doesn't brush, he doesn't want to brush, he doesn't give a damn about it, right? It's clearly our problem. So when parent owns the problem, then what do you do, right? So that really gave that framework for us to say, okay, when we look at it this way, then there are so many other options that we can work with the child. And also bringing the thing that she said about not, it's not that, okay, I know you need to brush and I will show you how. Moving away from that to really make it as a involved activity along with him, and see what he can find interesting in this. Make it like a enjoyable activity for him, because it was clearly traumatic the way we were doing it earlier.
For you
So
also, it's
for
obviously
us,
traumatic
plus,
for him, but it was
yeah,
it was traumatic for both of you. So I'm just gonna
yeah,
a little bit. So what I'm hearing you say is that when you looked at it through the P.E.T window, you also probably took care of his needs in the whole process. Is what I'm hearing.
yeah, which was completely being discounted earlier.
Yeah.
So here now we said, okay, this is, so that's when I think we started looking at him as a human being, right? And not like something we can toy with and do whatever we want with. In the garb of, saying that we know best what is best for you, right? So to be able to really shift from that and look at him as a human being, even though he's just a year old, and then coming up, and then we could come up with so many different ways of making it fun, number one, right? So like I think we sat in front of the mirror, and he could see what was happening, and then we started making faces and making it enjoyable, and not be fixed on that he needs to brush all his teeth for 10 minutes every day, blah blah blah, all of that, right? So not to get fixated with that, but also to allow ourselves the freedom that, okay, if he doesn't brush on one day, it's okay. Not a problem, right? We'll do it the next day. But we will not go back to making it a traumatic experience for all of us. So yeah, I've been yapping too much.
Yeah. So
great example. Thank you. And I think a lot of us will find that very familiar. Brushing is up there, I would say, on the list of things that parents struggle with, along with food and other things. So
yeah, food is probably even off the charts, and then brushing comes up.
Yeah, especially in our Indian context where food is such a big deal.
Yeah, food means a lot more things than just food.
Yeah. Anusha.
Yeah. So for me, so this was also one of the challenge, but the other challenge was during the course of P.E.T, when we were introduced to active listening and how we can practice, we were lucky that Arun was verbally also communicating even when he was around 1. So not in full.
Sure.
And so that way Arun could clearly say whether he liked or didn't like things. So when we started practicing active listening, so he was very comfortable when we used to voice out when he was happy or sad or in pain. He was okay. But whenever we hit, when we pointed out if he was angry, then that somehow didn't sit with him. So coming to one of the I would not say problem was, so when Aran was in pain, yeah, so he hurt himself or he was in pain, the easiest for me to do at that time was to just feed him and soothe him, yeah, because I was like, okay, he's in pain, he has hurt his hand or finger, and like, what do I do? He's crying like crazy, I can't see that. Okay, let me just feed him, yeah. And during the course, and we with your help, I really understood that at some time the child should learn to self-soothe, yeah. And here, because he was a communicative child, and so really tell him, hey, you are hurt, yeah, and make him understand that what you're experiencing is pain, yeah. So telling him that, helping him identify that feeling was one. And also then maybe look at options. Okay, so feeding, yes, is one option, but what else can we do, yeah. What are the other options, yeah. And that's where for me problem solving really helped, because being a year old, I think you really, the child cannot communicate in big sentences and come up with ideas. Maybe that is the parents, then parents, for me it was okay, like let me come with options, yeah. And for me, immediately what clicked was, what do I do when I'm in pain, yeah. For me, I have to somehow yeah, soothe myself, but at the same time remove my full attention from the pain. So that's where I use. And yeah, that really helped. The problem solving really helped. And what really helped was also when I tried, it was clear that Aran was okay with it, yeah. Aran also now, so fast forwarding couple of now almost a year later, even till date that works, yeah. Aran says he has hurt himself, he says clearly it pains very much or it pains very little, and he immediately tells, hey, come, let's go and do a small prayer, yeah. And
so the prayer was essentially the other option, which so we basically slightly rub the area where he has hurt softly, and then utter a small prayer. And if we are in the home somewhere, we will go to the place where we have kept the god and all of that, and we will do that. And he really thoroughly enjoyed doing this as well. So now he himself goes through all of these stages, so like crying and acknowledging that it is really hurting, and then asking us sometimes to lift him. He would still do that, and then he will continue crying for some time, and then he will say, let's go and do a prayer. And then we will go, and then he will do the prayer. We will also gently, softly rub the area where he has hurt himself, and then he will come back to being himself, and then play and start doing what he does best again.
Wow, this is amazing. And he's only like a year and a half or something now, right? It's not.
It's 2, yeah. So 2 years and a couple of months, yeah.
So I'm hearing several steps, right? So there's the first is like something happened that upset him. Then there's an full acknowledgement of his internal experience. So there's a lot of room and space for that, which is basically what P.E.T does, is allows the parent to create space for the child's internal experience and acknowledgement of that. And then through the problem solving, age appropriately, and Aran's very little, but already I can tell that you have transferred responsibility and ownership for his own soothing, we're calling it self, to him, which I think even as adults, a lot of us struggle with, right? Because and we know that being in the TA community, like all these addictions and so on and so forth, like the way we self-soothe is like, even if it is getting lost in a mobile phone or like overeating or all of it, I'm not even talking about drinking and smoking and all of that necessarily. And it starts here, right? This capacity to take care of discomfort. So this is beautiful. Thank you for that. So was there anything else? I'm just looking through my questions here.
No, so just so what this triggered for me also is during these times is also when we figured out through trial and error that he doesn't like active listening when he is hurt like this. Right. So at that point, when he's really crying and saying, if I try to verbalize what he's feeling, he would just scream even more.
Right.
So that was so that was a struggle initially to understand. Okay, we're learning something, we're trying that, but why is it not working? So that was kind of going. I think we brought this back to one of the classes also. And what you said at that time really, I remember that as well, that see, when he's really communicating that it's not working for him, let's not do it. Let's first acknowledge and listen to what is it that he's communicating very clearly, and then we will know what is it that he needs, right? So if you're just going with a manual and trying to do it without paying attention to the feedback that he's giving, then again it's not going to help
basically in that situation.
So essentially then we understood that okay, that really is what is active listening, right? So you're really wanting to listen to what he's saying and then respond, saying what he's doing. So
absolutely. And a huge part of the response, active listening is one part, which is like the more verbal part, but a huge part of the response is actually the total presence of us, right? And that includes silences as well. So I think you figured out eventually that maybe just presence and not verbal thing is what is required when he's that upset, and he's quite clear in his communication that he doesn't want to talk right now.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So real nuggets, these, and thank you for having this call, because I think when we talk about it is also when I am realizing that wow, these are so many things that we have actually done which we may otherwise not really acknowledge so much. So yeah, really enjoying that.
To make space for more of this. So we use it a bunch of different skills. I mean, and they're pretty common sense. When we look at the skills, there's nothing hi-fi or rocket science in the skills themselves, but they're very effective and powerful when used. So which is your favorite one, or which one was surprising for you, or which do you use more of, less of? How is that for you?
So I'll go here. So I try to use more of problem solving, active listening, but right now what I have never tried is confrontational iMessages with Arun. Very interesting. Maybe something to retrospect later why. But I don't know. That maybe what is also bringing up here is maybe there is a discounting of seeing him as a small child still, whether he'll be able to understand if I tell, hey, because of this I feel this way. But just to answer your question, I think we try a lot of problem solving, and that works, and it works because we also see that he remembers. He remembers the options, and very recently also he was using one of the options which we used way long before for the brushing scenario.
It was so much fun.
It was so much fun. So somewhere I feel problem solving works more because
Anusha, because problem solving actually involves all the skill sets. So there's the active listening, the listening, the whole of the listening, passive and active listening, and confrontational and the iMessages, because it's gear shifting involved, right? So you say something and then you respond, and you listen to the response, and then you confront again. And I'm really wondering if actually you're confronting, but because the whole process is so smooth, you're not thinking of it as confrontation. I'm really surprised, because I'm sure you're asking for your needs to be met as well, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Very
we do that. Interesting.
That's a confrontive. What we in P.E.T call a confrontive iMessage is not necessarily like this at all. It's just something, a behavior that is getting in the way of my needs as a parent, and it sounds like probably doing it, but it's going so well.
So
you're not at all.
the example that jumping to me is lifting him for long. Right? So
Yeah.
he just loves being carried.
Yeah.
But I can only carry him for so long, right? So even if I were He-Man, I can carry him only for so long. So I do carry him when both our needs are that. So I also want to hold him. He also wants to be held. But at times when my hands are paining, I clearly tell him, it's painful for me. I can't hold you right now. I will hold you again after some time. And I put him, and he's okay to be put down. Of course, sometimes he will resist. No, I want to be held. Then I'll say, I will hold you, but not right now. I can't do it right now. I'm really in pain, so I'm putting you down. And then I will put him down. So that's a confrontive kind of fix there for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's one of the beauties, I think, of the program as well. I mean, as a parent myself, and still to this day, like my children are much older, obviously 18 and 13, but I feel that our needs oftentimes we sacrifice our needs in the service of the child, and really that's not very helpful in the mid to long term. I mean, I can notice when I get very irritable and cranky, and I know that I'm not taking care of what I need to take care of for myself, like whether it's work or personal or anything. So
yeah,
great.
absolutely. And not to, of course, not to say that we do it smooth flowing all the time.
Yeah.
it's yeah. So, and if it were there that way, then there's no fun as well, isn't it? So of course it becomes difficult, and we don't do it as well all the time. But that's where I think again a nice segue to the another area aspect, which is relationship between the parents, right? So that really helps when things when I can't do it anymore, right? So I lose my cool, or she loses her cool, and then the other person, because I think in large part, of course, because of our TA journey as well, plus the P.E.T training as well, I think immediately, or at least very quickly, the other person gets what the other one is going through, right? So I will know that, okay, fine, so she needs her space or whatever, and I can provide that support till she can come back, and then she will come back and we will have a conversation about it. And I'm so thankful that we are able to have such conversations, right? Otherwise, if it's just one person doing it, it's a mountain to climb that way. So I think attending the training together also was really helpful in this.
Yeah. So basically, we have a common language.
Yeah.
To communicate and
to understand each other.
Yeah, to understand each other, and So for me, that I think if attended as a couple would be one of the best ways to do it. Because so it's so helpful. So it's a healthy symbiosis then between the parents, and that really.
Sorry.
And that shows, so that shows in how the child experiences
the environment that we form the container for this child that is being created. So the relationship between the two of you, or the parents' relationship, is kind of like a container in which the child is growing, apart from the physical environment. Of course, this is a psychological environment we're creating. So and thank you for bringing that up and sharing that, because it's one of the big reasons why I offer for the audience, just to share that, like, I offer the program to parents for the same price as for one parent.
So thoughtful.
Exactly this. That it's like 1 and 1 is 11. Like it is a thing in Hindi, 11 instead of 1 and 1 it becomes 2. So suddenly the whole system, if used well, really gets a huge lift and a boost, and your kind of communication is smoother.
And especially in the Indian setup, I would want to add that as well. We might generally also have other folks in the house, right? So not unlike the West, where it might only be the parents and the child. So here we may have grandparents and others around. And what I found very clearly is that definitely creates a greater level of complexity in the environment for the parents to deal with. So there's no question about it. Of course, it is really helpful. And for a child, more the number of loving adults in its presence, the better it is for the child. No questions about it. But when we as parents, want to bring a change in how we want to operate, then we need to be prepared for some opposition from the previous generation, right?
Right.
Because there is a certain way in which we have been parented,
Right.
and our parents will expect
They know
that
better.
they know better, and they will want that to be carried on as a legacy as well. So
Sure.
expect some resistance from the previous generation when we try to bring around this. So that has been quite challenging, I think, unique to the Indian environment for sure. But happily, when the grandparents also see the impact on the child, they also want to change, right? And they also figure out that, okay, this is a different way, sure, and we are not losing our culture or legacy by adopting these things. In rather, we can see the child becoming so much more potent, right? So then that becomes a motivating factor for them also to change how they communicate with the child. But it is a slow process.
Surely. And do you kind of, you haven't said this, but I'm like asking if like you use the skills of active listening and iMessages with your parents when you're kind of
Little difficult. But so here's the hierarchy, right? In my head, easiest is with her,
yes,
right? All the skills to do easiest is with her. Next is with Aram. Next is with my in-laws, and finally it is with my parents. So that is my.
and yeah, I just want to say I completely understand that, because the most amount of triggers, or the most amount of uh, time and energy and effort that's been spent is in that relationship, and that's where we got formed. So I can see why that might be more difficult to do. Sure.
Yeah. You want to add something?
So for me, it's very funny. So most of the times my parents are around, and so with my mother, so the way she's seen, so the way sometimes I do explain to her, and especially with the soothing, and so she's seen the effect it has on the child, and so she's very receptive, and she totally respects what we are doing, and she totally follows it. It's a little tricky with my dad though. So for me it's very easy because it's my dad. I just use the same parenting method he used with me. I said, Appa, just do it.
Just do it this way. That's it.
That's it.
Whatever works right now. Yes.
Yeah.
So active listening and all the skills with you can wait. Right now, just do this.
So I'm guessing that you will recommend this to other parents. Is that what you're? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Totally.
Why should parents do the program? Like, if you can just say 3 points each. Maybe Anusha can start.
Sorry, what is the question? Why should parents do this program?
Why would any parent do a P.E.T program? Like, if you could just list 2 or 3 points.
Organically, you can go.
So I will just start with, and maybe you can. So for me, the biggest thing is, as I said earlier, choosing to communicate exactly what we feel is a key. And one beautiful example from our book was this, right? When a teenager comes home late, so immediately a parent is, oh, you should have come early, blah blah blah, and then they start scolding the child. But what you really felt was, I was concerned for your safety. So that is what it is, right? And it's just not that, it's also doing that and seeing the effect it has on the child. So for me, that is one of the main reasons I feel parents should attend this, because then they have a better way to communicate with the child and involve the child in whatever decisions that happen around the child, and not totally discounting that, hey, he's just a child, what will he know?
Even that one Aran is choosing and making choices and letting his will be known, and that's how willpower or capacity to think and to choose and to make mistakes, options, all of that develops through this process of allowing of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And more often than not, his options are much more creative than what we can come up with.
Yeah.
Not surprised.
Yeah. Having said that, it should not be misunderstood that by doing this, we are always letting the child choose his own way. No, that's not it. Yeah. So it's respecting the child's need, and at the same time also telling the child or letting the child know, so this is also important for us. Maybe you are not going to get it every time or not all the time, and communicating that very clearly why. Yeah. And so that is very important, so that way the child knows that it's always not going to be my way. My parents needs are also important. So yeah, so that is, I feel, should be one of the main reasons why parents should attend PET. And I would recommend the earlier the better, because
Quality in relationship, respect.
Mutuality in relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've had like instances in my office, my colleague. So when I was sharing about this, she shares her current issues with her child who's already in her early teens, and so I can clearly see where things can improve. So that's where I feel that so this should be so this is one of my prio one reasons why parents should attend PET.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's lovely.
Yeah. From what comes to my mind is, as a parent, you should do PET because you deserve it, right? So please, so if of course, it's not always only about the child, right? It is about you as a parent, really struggling through one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult jobs in the world, without any help or support, right? Or just carrying forward the script that our parents used. While there could be a lot of wisdom in that, in carrying forward some of those, but also not to discount yourself and your own ability to change whatever things that did not work for you, and that you also know that it doesn't work for your child. Then that's where I'm saying you really deserve to use this as well, as a parent, and fall back on it, lean on it, and take the support and the energy that this framework can provide. I'm even hesitating to use the word framework for this. It's a lot more than just that, right? It's not a dumbing down kind of an effect. I do not want to have. So it's really, and at the core of it, even as adults, sometimes I struggle to really know what is it that I'm feeling, right? And then first is to know what is it that I'm really feeling, and then be able to communicate it authentically so that it reaches the other person. This itself is such a big difference it can make, right? And if I can learn it as an adult, I can really benefit from it. Just imagine how much your child will benefit if they can learn it so early in their life, because they will just pick it up like that, right? We need to unlearn, relearn. Yeah, but it's just so much more powerful, and you're setting them up for success in that sense, right?
Yeah, for authentic living, for sure. I feel, I mean, I cannot agree with both of you really, but with Anusha's thing about the authenticity of PET. It's not pretend anything. It's being really real, not putting on a role. And I do feel that when children have the capacity to express fully and have space to express fully, then they can really be themselves and reach in this world.
And you will see how your relationship with your spouse also starts becoming a lot more real, right? And that is a space I think we have experienced in the last 1 year.
Actually, that was very interesting. He brought it up because that was my second point. It's just not with your child. So this exactly happened recently with Srinath when he had can't meet his friends. He was supposed to come at some time and he was getting late. He came very late. So my normal response, I was feeling really scared whether he's fine, whether he's okay and all that. But that was what I was really feeling. But the moment before PET, it would have been like, I would have been with, very angry, waiting to kick him and say, hey, you were supposed to come at this time. But then I just let it pass. And then I shared with him the other day, hey, this is what I went through. Yeah. And so I feel that PET, yes, it's very useful with your child, of course. But for me, per se, it's helped me take the techniques with my spouse, sometimes at work. Yeah. So really sharing what I feel, what my needs are, and putting it in a very in a lot better way with my manager. So yeah, of course it's with the child, but it's you can just take it and use it with people. Yeah. So for me, that's another place where it has really helped me. Yeah.
And in that example, right, so the response from me was entirely different compared to how it would have been earlier. If I was just confronted with her anger, then most of my energy would be gone in trying to defend myself. Right, rather when she shared how she really felt scared, I now want to do better, right, or want to change how I am when I'm in such a situation, so that I know because I know how she really feels, and I can do my part. And my concern for her is, exactly, so it triggers that space for me, and then the relationship grows into a much more beautiful space, right, than just being at war with each other in some sense, right. We would also get into a cold war kind of a mode earlier, right, when we are not talking to each other. But now, because we are able to access the real feeling, and we have this capacity to which we have unlocked to communicate it in a way in which really lands to the other person, we are having a lot more conversations about our real feelings, and that itself, that is a gift. That is a gift we didn't expect we will get from a parenting course, right? But but that's
I'm gonna sell it like this now. Just joking. But that's beautiful, really. I say that I use PET with my dog and my cat, and it's true, it's about...
And we have seen it.
We have seen it, and we have seen how well they respond as well to this.
This magic, I think so. Okay, so thank you so much. I have this one final question. What was your experience? This feels weird to ask this like this, but of me as a trainer, like, what could I have done better? What worked for you? And then we can close. We've almost done an hour. I can't believe how quickly that went.
Oh yeah. So let me start. So as I said, I knew I had to take help when Aran was even very tiny, and when I had time during my maternity breaks, and I had browsed through books, I was reading books. But it was very clear. So if it is in a training group with a trainer or an instructor, the wealth of knowledge that person can bring, not just with having done this course couple of times with multiple people, that's one benefit. But the benefit that an instructor, and especially you, Sonal, what I really benefited with you was you sharing your own experiences with raising your own children. That really helped, because at least I have this, that I have to put the instructor or somebody in a pedestal. For me, when I see that person is just not that, was a parent, is a parent, continues to be a parent, still having challenges,
yes, ma'am,
and still doing good, then there is hope. Then there is hope. So for me, it is like seeing whatever is in the book in paragraphs, in flesh, talking, sharing. So that really helped. And also the ecosystem of the other parents, so which we had in our training group. they sharing their experiences, and the role plays that we fumbled and we were struggling, and then when you just stepped in and when you did like fut, you I think, oh yeah, this is a way to do it. Wow, yeah. So that really helped. Yeah.
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah, it's time. Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
So for me, you as an instructor, the main thing that I really enjoyed was you being yourself, right? And so we talked about authentic living and relating as one of the base things of PET, right? So I could really experience that in you as an instructor. So there was no pretense. You were who you were. You had your moments of discomfort. You had your moments of fumbling. You had all the moments, right? You were good. You were right there all the time, right? So that really helped me relate with you a lot, and become receptive as well, right? So, and also, I think it's also an Indian cultural thing to put the guru at a pedestal and look up to the
Very
person,
much
and then
feet.
yeah,
Very much play feet. It's also
yeah,
sorry. Thank you for sort of jumping in. Thank you for sharing that, because one of the key things we have as instructors in the manual, right, when we did the training, was modeling. Yeah, we
yeah,
have to model this. So this is like a huge feedback for me, and also an affirmation of sorts. It's one of the things I keep in mind, that I need to model the skills like the active listening and the iMessage, whatever it is, like the whole bunch, right? So thank you.
definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good place to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess from the course point of view, I had just one or two suggestions as well.
Sure, please.
So maybe that's something I'd share before we stop. So one thing is, this could be a subjective thing, personal. For me, I felt a little rushed during the 8 weeks. Every week we are having something, but if we have a 2 week break between each module, each class, I personally will get more time to try out the stuff in between, because otherwise it becomes more and more concepts without trying time to do that. So that is one thing I felt we could do better. But see, again, I know the logistical things also need to be taken care of.
It's just a rhythm, really. I mean, the reason why the 8 weeks is like, and then 1 week, the next like 2 weeks. I'm not sure. Like, but I guess people could plan and things. I've never thought about it. I know you mentioned it at the course when we had spoken. So I suppose I could offer it and see if there's a response.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be a longer commitment, which might logistically become tougher, but I think it would really be beneficial. Having gone through it, I feel if it were spread over 16 weeks, I think it would have been really, a lot more powerful.
Manageable also in terms of taking out 8 week mornings. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I just had one when I was so post PET, when I was thinking, what came up to my mind was maybe having homogeneous trainings. Like, what I mean is, luckily we were, when we did the training, we were parents who had toddlers. Yeah, most of the parents had toddlers, not teenagers. So that really helped. So maybe, depending on how many people register, if it's a little bit homogeneous, for me, then it would be the kind of issues that parents bring and the kind of solutions that you might provide might be more relevant than having a mom with a 18-year-old or a 16-year-old telling something. I'm like, okay, but then wait, I'm having a 2-year-old. It's too far away for me. Yeah.
So heterogeneous learning groups, right? So heterogeneous learning groups generally are expected to bring more diversity and a better learning environment. But I think in this context, having a homogeneous or at least near age group children actually really helped us, because by whatever means, by luck, we had a group where all parents had small children. And that was very, very helpful for us.
We did have that one mom, like also a colleague who had come in with a much older child, but then not just because she had a teenager, but like also because of other reasons that
she stopped.
I've heard this before. My gut feeling still is that there is enough, or my sense of it still is that there's enough of attending. But I guess I'm gonna think more about, because I get this a lot from parents about the homogeneity of the group. That's more helpful for them. But okay.
Yeah.
I shall keep these two things in mind, and thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that was it. Right? Yeah. So that's what we wanted to share.
Thank you so much. It's been a lovely conversation. I've enjoyed it.
Yes.
Same
here. Thank you for having us.
Had a lot of goosebumps moments in between.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's So that really says how much it means for us.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonal. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.